Hi, I'm Jennifer, a book writing coach and editor and also a writer. So today we're talking about copy editing and why it's so important. Well, in the crowded book market, a well-edited book can make all the difference to reader sharing and reviews. And reviews, as we all know, affect sales. But how do you ensure that your book receives the professional treatment it deserves and you can afford? So I'll delve into some of those techniques that I employ as a copy editor and also what you can do yourself. So let's understand about the role of a copy editor. So copy editing plays, this crucial role, and hiring a copy editor is not the same as using a grammar checker like Grammarly. This is because a person who's an editor knows language use and scrutinises every word and sentence, a paragraph, and looks for multiple issues. And they also look for flow. And the editor is responsible for matching the suitability of the manuscript with selected reader groups and what you yourself have told them is your particular target reader. And one of the keys for a copy editor is to ensure that the writing is clear, concise and coherent. So they focus on improving sentence structure and eliminating unnecessary repetition, enhancing the flow of ideas. So fiction copy editors refine the narrative to help keep readers engaged and immersed in the story, and they'll also pick out things which doesn't seem right according to that special narrative that you've created. Good copy editing can transform a mediocre manuscript with a lot of repetition of words into a compelling piece of literature. So improving the clarity and the flow can make the difference between, furrowed brow, miscommunication and an educational immersive read. So with writing coaching or editing, it helps to maintain the integrity of the author's voice. A skilled copy editor understands the importance of preserving the author's style and tone while making these necessary improvements. So they won't cut out all the conversational style you might have if they're a top-notch editor and they're not just saying, "I'm the grammar police." Sometimes editors will ask a few questions about the type of style they desire to achieve, and it's ensuring the final manuscript is a reflection of the author's vision and meeting those expectations, of course, of the target reader who don't want to read 3 genres in one book kind of thing. So there's some debate about this, but self-published authors can benefit greatly from professional editing, even if they're not going to make a heap of money from their book. In a competitive market where readers are having increasingly high standards, investing in this type of editing is considered the minimum for launching and getting reviews and recognition. Important in non-fiction, a copy editor is also responsible for fact-checking and verifying the information provided by the author. So they ensure the book is accurate, credible, and free from inaccuracies. One thing I forgot to say is also free from plagiarism, which is a bigger problem than you might think. I have often caught an example as well that stated pseudoscience is fact when it is not. And if you're doing this yourself, Wikipedia can provide some help with fact verification, although not all. So this kind of attention to detail helps build trust with readers and establishes the author as a reliable source of information so that they come back next time. And do you yourself have a keen eye for errors? Well, while every manuscript is unique, there are common mistakes that authors often make during the writing process. So be on the lookout for these to avoid them and ultimately help save yourself some money as well on the editing. So one common mistake is overlooking typographical errors. It's easy for some small spelling mistakes, missing words or missing punctuation marks to slip through the cracks whilst you're focusing on the bigger picture. Mistakes like using how instead of who. These seemingly minor errors can have a significant impact on the overall reading experience and should be carefully addressed. Another mistake is using excessive or unnecessary words. Copy editing helps to identify and eliminate unnecessary words, ensuring that the writing is concise and impactful. Inconsistent formatting is another common issue. Strange use of font style, spacing, indents, and other things can make the book look unprofessional and be distracting. So don't use hard returns more than once. Copy editing helps to establish a consistent format throughout that enhances the overall reading experience. But don't confuse this with design, which is a different stage. Poor sentence structure and lack of clarity are also common issues. Sentences that are too long and convoluted can confuse readers and disrupt the flow. Copy editing helps to rephrase sentences, ensuring that ideas are conveyed clearly and concisely. Sentence length variety can be used to give readers a mental break. I like to chop some sentences in half because it's usually just easier to read. Knowing which language version that they need to use, as English has 2 types. Copy editors pay close attention to grammar, punctuation, idioms, and spelling. They ensure the book adheres to the rules of language, as you know, maintaining consistency. So writers often forget the convention that they used before, or simply don't know the many rules of punctuation and grammar, and so make a ton of tiny mistakes, such as they'll write out some numbers and then other numbers they'll just put the number, but that only applies if the number is like over 10, then you put the number. Or they'll write percent as a full, or then sometimes they'll write percent as a symbol. You want to have it just consistent all the time. It's all about learning these little rules and knowing when you can break them if you want to, but you don't break those simple things. Overall, a copy editor's role is to be the author's ally and working to elevate the quality of the book and its potential. So the process is systematic. I don't need to go into everything I wrote in my blog, but the first stage of the editing process is usually called the manuscript assessment. Sometimes I call it a developmental review, and it involves evaluating the manuscript as a whole to identify any major issues or areas that require attention, and also that will help you assess what you need to do yourself as the author, because the editor will talk about structure, flow, depth and clarity of the writing. And it's important that you take a non-emotional stance on their constructive feedback. And this stage is usually charged for, but an assessment of the level of editing is not usually billed for. Let's not get confused though. What is called developmental editing addresses the structural issues, keeping the subject matter unfolding logically and engagingly and deleting repetition. And that stage comes before copy editing, and it's more of a hands-on kind of stage. And the manuscript then goes back to the author with a report and comments and possibly like the track changes on how they think that they should fix it. And sometimes that can just help you get out of your head. And after that, there's the line-by-line copy edit, as we've been talking about, that focuses on seeing each sentence and paragraph and marking up improvements. Yeah, so after that line-by-line copy edit becomes the proofreading stage. I always laugh when someone says, "Oh, my book just needs proofreading," because I know that they haven't had editing. Proofreading is the final check before the book goes to the printer, and in this stage the copy editor or another proofreader, it's better to have another proofreader, looks for any remaining errors or inconsistencies that may have been missed during the previous stages, or that may have popped up during the layout, that maybe something got cut off, or various things like plate, captions and things like that. Throughout the entire copy editing process, clear and open communication between the author and the copy editor is crucial. The author should provide necessary background information and guidance on the actual goals, while the copy editor should ask for clarification whenever needed. And this collaborative approach ensures that the final product meets the author's expectations and maintains their unique voice, which is important, obviously. Yeah, so in my blog I've got more tips about self-editing, but a lot of you won't really want to do that probably, and how to go through self-editing. Yeah, so it's important not to just let AI and Grammarly do all the heavy lifting, and make sure that you know yourself the editing rules, or get a professional copy editor. So when you are hiring a copy editor, what do you look for? I think you should look for experience and expertise in your genre or niche. So it could be how-to or self-help or like fiction, romance or whatever, but it doesn't need to be narrower than that. As long as someone's done that kind of genre, they don't need to be going, oh, you need a sales how-to editor. It's all much the same really. The editor should be familiar with the conventions and expectations of your target audience, but again, you as the author should be knowing your target audience very well, and you can pass on some of that. And of course, the copy editor should have a strong understanding of grammar, punctuation and language rules. You might want to request samples of previous work to assess their style and quality. You might ask for testimonials from authors they have worked with in the past, and this will give you an idea of their professionalism and communication skills and ability to meet deadlines. And a good copy editor should also be open to, collaboration, discussing your goals and expectations, and not just doing everything as if you were a project on Upwork. You're actually paying for that collaboration approach. And I also sometimes throw in a 1-hour review of all the different things, the comments on the side of the page. So they should be receptive to your feedback and suggestions while providing constructive criticism. Open communication is key. So also discuss pricing and turnaround time before making a decision on your copy editor. And while it's important to find an editor within your budget, remember that quality editing comes at a higher price usually, and sometimes freelance editors with 20 years of experience can quote below an editor hired by a subsidy publisher and be 10 times better at it. And so, you're getting a lot more bang for your buck there, aren't you? The thing is, if we're trying to say, oh, I can get someone on Upwork or Fiverr that's a lot cheaper than an Australian editor who's had a lot of experience, well, good luck. You have people who can do a really good book edit for a couple of $100. It just doesn't exist. You can be optimistic, that's fine, but just telling you, if someone's going to spend 25 to 30 hours, maybe 40, 45 hours on your book edit, then you want to be able to trust that they're doing a good job and they're not just doing this for the money. Trust your instincts and choose a copy editor with whom you feel comfortable working. A good editor-author relationship is built on trust and mutual respect. So, if you have doubts about their abilities, perhaps continue your search until you find the right editor for you. Right, I've got a little bit more about the software and that sort of thing in the blog post. We've got Grammarly, Hemingway Editor, ProWriting Aid, StyleWriter, and there's another. So they all improve the clarity and readability of your writing and look for different common grammatical problems and cliches, as StyleWriter does, which is good because cliches are something that, you don't want too many of. And it will help a little bit with clarity, but sometimes when it picks up things like passive voice, you actually can't get away from some types of passive voice sentences. In some cases, there is no actor in that sentence. The cost of copy editing, budgeting, let's talk about that. Well, obviously longer manuscripts require more time and effort to edit, which results in a lot higher costs. Be prepared for those price variations based on the word count of your book. And cutting down a 90,000 word book to 60,000 words is quite the task. But this would also keep it to one theme and not be verbose if it was, say, a non-fiction how-to book where someone doesn't want to read things again and again. But also remember that you can do some of that cutting down for the editor if you know what's not important more than the editor does. And complexity, of course, requires a little bit more niche experience, and it may come at a higher price. Faster turnaround time might be a little bit extra, and additional services. As I've said, proofreading is another stage, and you might want a design quoted at the same time. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed our video on guides to copy editing your book.